Heidi was elderly, poor, and without the convenience of contemporary plumbing. Once a month, she was used to having to dig her own toilet. However, one month, when digging her toilet, she chanced to find something so startling that it made her shudder. Welcome to USA Stories channel. Do not forget to subscribe and activate the bell button to receive all new updates. Now let's go to the story. As someone who had grown up in rural India from birth, Heidi was no stranger to hardship. While some residents of the town were keeping up with the times, it was still 1920 on her farm. Plumbing was one of the few contemporary things she possessed. Heidi would dig a pit toilet for her and her mother to use once a month. She didn't see the need for it to alter because it was standard procedure when she was younger. But the work became more and more challenging as she grew older. As an elderly woman, she didn't particularly enjoy the work, but it was necessary. A chilly winter day found her digging the toilet. The cold, dry weather made the terrain hard, which made it very challenging for her. She really missed her hubby at moments like these. He was really skilled at this and would frequently do it for them. In an attempt to get leverage, she smashed the spade as hard as she could into the earth. In order to survive a month, the toilet needed to be rather deep. Digging up the top layer of the ground was difficult, but it gradually became simpler once she started to move the soil. This time, she had positioned herself further behind the house, away from the typical site. She had had enough of the daily scent of the toilet. She didn't give it much thought at the moment until she happened onto something surprising. Her shovel started hitting objects that didn't feel like sand when she was approximately a meter deep in the earth. She was first certain that it was most likely boulders buried well below the surface, but the manner the shovel was striking them didn't seem to match. She set the spade aside, curious to see what it may be, and dug with her hands till she discovered the hard object. Her expectations were much exceeded by what she discovered. She found bones in her hands. She wasn't sure what they were, but they were large bones. She was just aware that whatever it was had long since perished. She initially believed that she could have discovered the remains of a large animal, possibly an elderly lion that had perished all those years ago. Until she discovered something that caused her toes to curl, it seemed like a reasonable explanation. A casing that resembled a bullet was found amid the bones. It was something very different, though, when she took it up and examined it. The object was really an old lipstick container. It was clearly obvious that she was standing on the bones of a deceased lady rather than lions. The contents of her purse were intact, but the rest of her had rotted away. Heidi screamed and made a hasty attempt to get away from the bones after realizing she was somehow in someone's tomb. Something she had just learned sent a chill up her spine. It was like nothing she had ever experienced before. How likely was it that she would have dug up there on that particular day? She was certain that it had some significance. Heidi phoned the police, of course, and told them what she had discovered. They were a little shocked. Heidi asked the doubters to visit her farm to see it for themselves, attributing that to her age and poverty. The following day, the police, along by a special investigator, hesitantly showed there. The lady allegedly worked in forensics. She was present to confirm that the bones were really ancient and had been dug up, not put by the elderly woman. However, all suspicion vanished the moment she saw the improvised burial Heidi had discovered. The investigator wanted to remove all of the bones from the ground as quickly as possible. She was determined to find out who owned them and why they were there. This was appreciated by Heidi. She was also interested in the woman's identity and how she became involved in her family's scheme. She must be much older than Heidi's own acquaintances. Heidi also gave the lipstick jar she had discovered to the investigator. The initials C and J were hand-engraved on the brass plating. It crossed Heidi's mind that the woman may have been a distant relative. Joost was, after all, her family name. She dismissed the idea as absurd, let the police do their investigation, and returned home to inform her mother of her discovery. Heidi's mother was afflicted with severe dementia, so she wasn't typically there. She did, however, have some lovely epiphanies. Those were very much Heidi's life. She cherished the opportunity to speak with her mother and remember bygone times. But as she grew older, those days became increasingly rare. Heidi was mostly unaware of the crap her mother was saying about the past half the time. She kept returning to the same story, how her father had forbidden her from marrying the man she was in love with. Given that her mother had married her first love interest from school, Heidi thought this to be quite perplexing. She had heard their love tale a lot as a child. After taking the same class, they developed a like for one another, which eventually led to love. Even though they were just 16 at the time, it made no difference. Heidi, of course, was baffled by her mother's constant complaining about her father, forbidding her from marrying her sweetheart. Naturally, things didn't add up until the forensic investigator returned with findings 2 weeks later. The woman was kind and made an effort to be as straightforward as possible in her explanation of her needs. The bones they had discovered were more than a century old, she explained. Indeed, they came from a young woman who had been shot and killed. Heidi was appalled. A bullet indicated that she may have been killed. Who would have desired to harm a young woman in this way? Heidi was then asked whether they may take a DNA sample from her by the forensic investigator. They only needed to establish their strong suspicion that she was linked to the woman. Heidi gladly handed her a handful of hair. She was also curious about the mysterious woman. Following confirmation of the DNA, they were able to link it to a girl called Carolyn and the Joost family, which clarified why she had used the initials C and J. They used this new knowledge to look up the real events in the city's records. As it turns out, she had a romantic relationship with a man her father disapproved of. His dislike had been well known, and when the pair vanished, it was assumed that they had just eloped and were never heard from again. Nobody ever believed her father was involved in their abrupt disappearance. However, everything started to make sense once they discovered Carolyn's bones. As soon as possible, they set out to search the area for her lover's bones. Indeed, they discovered a young man's bones less than 100 meters distant. Heidi found it hard to believe. Her gut knotted and her toes curled as her family sat on this terrible secret for all these years. After appearing in the local newspaper, the story quickly spread across the country. Hearing such a horrifying story shocked people across the nation. Now Heidi's mother's outbursts began to make sense. She had been attempting to share the family secret with her daughter all along. Heidi was appalled. She hoped that she wouldn't have to deal with another terrible family secret the next time she dug a hole. Finding out that your family was involved is far more awful than the revelation itself. If you had discovered human remains in your property, how would you have felt? Do you believe the family should keep it a secret? Please remember to subscribe to our channel, give us a thumbs up, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of our videos. If you enjoyed the tale, the next video that plays on your screen will probably move you too.